Hi, this is Nadia Dervish. This is my final presentation for applications of TESOL. So I will be teaching my day one reading lesson. A little bit about the students. We have adult, intermediate, B1, B1 plus students, and this lesson would be appropriate for a business English class, although it's something I could also see myself using with my college kids as well. So for our lesson objectives, students will be able to read 5 job advertisements, British English versus American, choose the most suitable candidate for the given job, use 5 new words to describe job seekers, assess and express which job they would be most suitable for themselves. Looking at the logistics, the timing is about 45 minutes. Necessary materials would be the printed worksheet, or you can access the file online and project it onto the screen, which is what I would be inclined to do. Also for this lesson, I looked to use the strategies for reading comprehension in Chapter 17. I wanted it to be very easy to identify the purpose in the reading, and I wanted a reading on a topic that would be relevant and interesting. A lot of my college students have never had a job before, so they find part-time jobs very fascinating, and they ask me lots of questions about what it's like to be a waitress and work as a barista. So I think this would be a good lesson for them. So the warm-up uses the semi-controlled technique of referential questions and answer. This could also be a student discussion. It prepares the students for the reading by drawing on background knowledge and gets them thinking about the topic. These are just some example questions I came up with. You could come up with pretty much any other question as long as it's job related. And if you have students maybe in a business English class that have had multiple jobs, you could ask something like, what's your best job? What was your worst job? What made it so? Anything to just get the students speaking about the topic. So for this slide, I picked a few words for the students that they might not be familiar with, just to pre-teach. As a second language learner myself, I always found it incredibly helpful when key terms or ideas were pre-taught before a reading activity. Instead of stopping to look up a word on my phone, I could glance at the board and it was like, oh yeah, we learned that just 5 minutes ago. And you can keep on reading. So it adds just a little bit more information to the background knowledge before we dive in. And there are a few different ways to pre-teach. It could be done in the form of multiple choice questions, or you could make up a few extra slides defining the words. I always like to see if the students already know the answers, and it's nice to hear how they would define it in their own words as well. So I tend to like to pose them to the class rather than give the answers right away. So this is a copy of the text that I would use in class. It's copy and pasted a little strangely to fit on this slide, but you get the gist. We have 5 different job adverts, lots of bold font and colors and pictures and italics, lots of different things to draw your eye, which is great for when we skim the text. Following parts of the SQ3R process, I would have the students quickly skim the text for main ideas. And if this reading was a part of the student book, I would be tempted for the students just to keep their books closed up until this point. And then I might even just project it on the whiteboard for a minute to help the students get used to skimming. Clicking back, there's a lot for them to look at with this reading and a lot to kind of draw their eye in. So skimming would be a great thing to practice here. And I know that if students have the book open in front of them, they will definitely just get lost in the text. Telling them, okay, open your books, 30 seconds, close them really fast. Doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. So I would be tempted to throw it up on the screen. And with skimming, I would remind the students that we are skimming for main ideas, right? And what would these main ideas look like? They are things in bold, they're numbers, they're italics, they're colored. They do tend to draw your eye. And then just for some further thinking, like what are we looking at? What is the purpose of something like this? And then another follow-up question might be, what other types of jobs might you find listed here? Here we jump into the silent reading portion of the activity. So I would have the students go back and read the 5 adverts more in depth. And during the reading portion, the controlled technique of identification is used when the students answer the questions. Also, the comprehension check questions rely on the overt response of choosing and answering to help indicate comprehension. We have 5 characters and brief descriptions, so a little bit more reading. And the students are going to match each person with the job best suited for them. This could be done individually or in pairs. I would also be fine with the students doing this while they complete the reading at the same time, rather than have them do the reading, close their books, open up to this activity. I think being able to reference the text while they do this comprehension check is also okay, because in the real world, nobody's going to snatch the paper away from you while we're reading. And for the final, I would have us check our answers, check the comprehension check as a class. I think also this is where doing it in pairs, doing this matching activity in pairs is a little bit better, because generally students are a bit more confident then to raise their hand and be like, I have the answer to this one, when they've already double checked it with a peer first. So I would run through the answers with these and then just end on this kind of very easy, nice discussion question. So which job would you choose? Why? Students could do this in small groups. They could do it in pairs. I think small groups would be a little bit better for this. And ending on this kind of light discussion question brings in the skill of speaking. And by this point, the students should be very comfortable with the content or the topic to help ease some anxiety about speaking. And though this is primarily a reading lesson, the speaking activity at the end helps promote a little bit of automaticity, and it's a relatively task-based lesson to begin with. It also brings in the third overt response that indicates comprehension. Students are conversing and engaging in a conversation that indicates appropriate processing of information. In the following lesson, we're going to try our hand at writing our own job advertisements. So I would ask students to bring in some examples that they see throughout the week. Newspapers aren't quite as common anymore, so a screenshot on their iPhone would suffice. I wouldn't really feel the need to check answers at the end of this discussion. I suppose if time allowed or you needed to fill an extra 5 minutes, you could ask students to share, but I think also just walking around the class and observing would do the trick just as well.